Okay, I got the front cut out. I cut it out on the outside of the line. This is all doubled up, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Got the back marked at 63 millimeters, and I've darkened it up here with a Sharpie. So the gear, I like to put this gear on next. The gear goes angling back. Of course, it doesn't have to be perfect. I get it, on that line, I get it pulled up tight. Kind of check the other side. Really, it kind of self-squares itself. I kind of use the gear to get it right more than the line. Just make sure it's at the right. And then I'll go ahead and drill with this 1/4-inch drill. Through the part. This, I think, makes it easier because it allows you to, use this wooden part to align the doubler blocks or the backup blocks. Now, when you're putting this fuselage in the scale body for real, the whole idea is that this gear sits down in the bottom of the fuselage, and then you slide this scale body in between it. Then you go ahead and put in these 2 screws that we've made up, these plastic bolts. Now, if you're right-handed, it'll be easier to do that from the right-hand side. If you're left-handed, it'll probably be easier to do on the left-hand side. So that kind of tells you which direction you want these bolts to come in from. So what I'll do is stick these 2 bolts through and put the plastic nuts on and snug them up. Okay, so we've got this piece of wood without a hole in it. It goes behind here, just medium snug, not tight, but just up against it. The wood with the hole in it goes on the front side in this position, bonded to the, and of course the nose gear supports, they go on in this position. Now, I like to use contact cement for these, and then these nuts need to be glued on this side, and I'll use some 5 or 15 minute epoxy and get a nice fillet around them, and just leave this together till it sets up and make sure this is flat. So to get the contact cement to stick to this paint, or it helps a bunch if you roughen it up. So I'll roughen up these areas where the doubler boards go. This paint's a little flatter than, I wonder if the contact cement would go okay with this flatter paint. Get all the dust off the sanded areas. Use epoxy if you want. Works probably just as well. Contact cement's just maybe a little bit quicker. Usually, while I think about it, I mark out the outside of this. So I have a kind of an area where I need to apply the contact cement. This contact cement, once it's dry, it's not really that tacky, so if you get outside the lines, I guess it really doesn't dry. It's pretty much clear, so it's pretty convenient. I use this to install the windows too. If you get a little bit on the removable piece, it doesn't seem to stick either. So okay, so contact cement on these pieces. Then with contact cement, you need to do the one side of all these wood pieces. This contact cement makes a mess if you get it on your work area, so put down a piece of paper. And with this front piece, just make sure you do a right and a left one, because they will be opposite glue. Once that contact cement is dry, you actually put it together. Now while that contact cement is drying, I'll mix up some 10-minute epoxy here. And glue these nuts into place. Just put a Nice generate fillet around the nut. Probably be better if you got some underneath it, but then you risk getting it on the threads. And this always works. There's not a lot of load on these things or anything. Just don't have to be even that snug. Take care of some of those puddles. Okay, so I'm going to lay this perfectly flat like this and let the epoxy dry, and then let the contact cement dry, and when it's all dry I can just stick those boards on. Okay, this epoxy's pretty much set. The blocks with the holes go in the front. Snug up against its, usually leave just a little bit of gap to keep it away from the bottom. I want these to be touching. They don't have to be tight, but touching. They really are what take the load, any landing loads. Contact cement, when you get it where you want it, you got to apply a lot of pressure. You can't slide it around either, so make sure it's where you want it. You don't want this wood to be hanging over the front. I won't let the canopy close all the way. When you do this opposite side, you really want to make sure that you get it in the same spot as the other side. Eyeball side to side there and make sure these little tabs are in line with one another before you glue it down, because that kind of holds the nose gear in position. Make sure these aren't sticking out. Okay, now I've seen the width is just off a skosh, so these holes are a little bit close. I think I solved that problem typically by just shaving these tabs, make them just a little bit thinner on the outside. Make these tabs just a little bit thinner, remove that material on the outside, and So make sure this is clear. And this landing gear should just push right on in here. Of course, that needs to be epoxied on, which I'll do and let that dry. Get a nice, good, generous quantity of epoxy in here to get it all glued down. We'll let that dry, and then it's just a little bit of wiring. I think we're done with the landing gear.